Hi, this is Tony Holler, and I would like to thank Eric Cash for inviting me to present this webinar. We're going to talk today about feeding the cats and training through a new lens. I think it's important to go through the mission statement of Feed the Cats. A lot of people think it's basically running a couple 10-meter flies and going home. First of all, speed is the tide that lifts all boats. I believe that the fastest athletes are the best athletes typically. We want to rest, recover, and sleep as the foundation of high performance. This is a forgotten thing through traditional sports in America. We want to record, rank, and publish as the food of cats. We want to feed the competitive nature of athletes in practice. We need to accept that tired is the enemy. It's not the goal. That if we want to create racehorses and not workhorses, we need to approach practice as fresh as possible. Never let today ruin tomorrow. We never want to burn the steak. Too many times people practice hard on Monday, they practice hard on Tuesday, they practice hard on Wednesday, they practice hard on Thursday, and then they play a game on Friday, and then they say, oh yeah, we need to take the day off after a game because the game was hard. Well, how about those 4 practices? We want to be 100% healthy and 80% in shape, not the other way around. We are going to actually intentionally be somewhat out of shape in order to create 100% healthy athletes. We want to perform in practice. This is unique. Usually practice was just miserable, trudging through things, saving early in practice, being tired in the second half of practice. But moderate exercise never leads to high performance. Let the game be the hardest thing you do. My dad used to say that we're going to make practice so hard that the games feel easy. He was a great coach, but he was wrong. We want the game to be the hardest thing of our week. Kids are good at what they like and obsessed with what they love. I don't like people when they say, oh, kids these days, blah, blah, blah. Kids are fantastic. Kids are really good when they like what they're doing. So, and this is the most important thing, we need to make practice the best part of a kid's day. Now, I wasn't always like this. I grew up old school. I grew up the son of a coach. My dad was a head basketball coach for 44 of his 47 years at the high school and college level. And so I coach just like my dad. You know, that's what we do. We coached the way we were coached. And then I also copied other successful coaches that were very traditional. I started off my first 10 years as a head basketball coach at the high school level, and my favorite coach to visit and learn from was Bobby Knight. He was about a 2.5-hour drive away from where I coached, and so I would attend practices. I went to his coaching academy, and I thought, man, if he's that good, I need to be just like him. I was intolerant of losing. And I thought that, you know, being a poor loser was a good thing. And so many coaches fall into this trap. I believe that we need to outwork the competition we talk about all the time with my team. You know, like, yeah, nobody's going to work harder than us. Nobody. And we're going to turn you boys into men. It's strange whenever I hear that comment. I always wonder, why don't we try to turn girls into women? You know, that's never said. This is a very masculine, testosterone-driven thing. I believe that winners always outwork the losers. And, you know, so what this meant was if you lost, you need to double down and work twice as hard. And what happens is you create a losing streak that way because fresh, healthy athletes win games, not fatigued athletes. And finally, I believe that practice was supposed to suck. It was supposed to be miserable. And, you know, we're going to go through hell all week in order to play the game and win. That was what we did. Now, Feed the Cats is a way to cook. It's not a recipe. Everybody wants to know sets and reps and things like that, and I just refuse to do that. If I was describing Feed the Cats, I just say simply 2 words: prioritize speed. Speed is the greatest barometer of health. It's also the first thing that comes out of a coach's mouth when you say, describe what athletic means to you. They'll say fast, explosive, strong. Fast is always the first thing out of their mouth. So we want to create athletes, and to do that, we prioritize speed. Now, if I had a little bit more space, like if I was going to put some on Twitter, what is Feed the Cats? It is where we sprint, record, rank, and publish, the food of cats. We sprint before lifting. We never let today ruin tomorrow. We accept rest and recovery to create performance level outputs. We stop doing shit that makes you slow, and we make practice the best part of a kid's day. I love the end of this feedback loop that I've created. Basically, when a coach works at making practice the best part of a kid's day, practices improve. Athletes show up enthusiastic. And I love to say that, even though teams reflect their coach, I think coaches reflect their team. And so an enthusiastic, happy team that really loves practice, they start to love the sport as well. And they start to love the coach. And so the coach becomes inspired and becomes a better human, does not go home and kick the dog and yell at his wife. He goes home a better man. And with those positive vibes, what happens is a coach becomes a better coach and will spend his off time trying to even make practices better. So in review, I really believe the team with the best athletes usually wins. Think of college football. The teams playing for the national championship had a lot of 5-star players. Recruiting is really important. So we want to attract athletes to our program. Now, in college, that's, like people want to play for Alabama, let's say. They want to play for Michigan. In high school, it's a little bit tougher. We have to really work to attract athletes. Every football coach should want to have those great athletes that play basketball be interested in football too. For sure, as a track coach, that's the whole game, is attracting athletes to your track program. Every school has a good track team. They're just not running track. Then, once we get them there, we make practice the best part of their day, and we create athletes. We improve athleticism by prioritizing speed and explosiveness and all the things that athletes do. So, what do athletes do? I call it building apex predators. So we want to sprint fast. We want to lift heavy. Now, lift heavy does not mean lift heavy weights with bad form. What I mean here is that we are not going to discount the weight room. The weight room is very important. A lot of people think that I'm like anti-weight room, anti-strength coach, all that kind of stuff. And me and a good strength coach would get along just fine. I believe that we need to work at jumping high and jumping far. And finally, bounce. My father, as a basketball coach, used to describe players he really liked as being bouncy. And he was 100% correct. Bouncy is an elastic, energetic thing that good athletes seem to have. So let's train bounce too. I've loved pyramids ever since I was a high school basketball player and a fan of John Wooden's pyramid of success. So I've created my own pyramid. Most coaches traditionally would have hard work and conditioning and thing at the base of the pyramid, and obviously I've changed it up. I believe that rest and recovery and sleep and nutrition creates the base. And if you don't have that base, you will never become better at athletic things. Fatigued athletes don't improve their sprinting, their lifting, they're jumping, or they're or bouncing. Fatigued athletes can't do those things. So you have to have that base. And then you can work on athleticism. And I think that it's important to understand that you work on athleticism before you work on your sport. Too many kids, like for example, AAU basketball, all they do is play basketball 12 months a year. And they don't get better at jumping and lifting. And they do get pretty good at jumping high. Jumping far, probably not. And they might get better at bouncy stuff, but I think they do so much of it that they're never really trained well to become a better athlete. I even question if they become a better basketball player because they do too much. And I think that in practice that we can become in better shape. And like nowhere in this pyramid do you see endurance. I'm just not a believer in endurance. I believe good athletes don't get tired. And when you practice for 90 minutes or 2 hours a day, you build capacity to do more work. I don't think you have to do 10 minutes of suicides or something at the end of practice. I don't think you have to do a warm-up and a cool-down mile if you're a sprinter. So all those things build to the thing we're trying to do, which is to win games. Never let today ruin tomorrow. Hormesis, to me, it is a pharmacological term, like dosage and things like that. And Paracelsus, 500 years ago, it's amazing that somebody thought of this, like 500 years ago, said that everything is a poison, nothing is a poison. It all depends on the dosage. I love the paradox there, everything and nothing. And when I think of this, I think of aspirin. Like if you take 2 aspirin, it's good for a headache. 100 aspirin, that's suicide. And I think that we need to look at training like that, that there are small doses that are effective for training athletes, whereas large doses kill athletes. Scholes, 200 years ago, said for every substance, small doses stimulate. I love that word, stimulate. Moderate doses inhibit, large doses kill. Once again, we need to think about training. We want training to stimulate athleticism. We don't want training to inhibit it or kill it. When I think about Scholes and this statement, I think about tequila. Maybe if you do a shot of tequila, you're on a roll. You're really feeling good at night. You're having a great time at the party, that kind of stuff. But we all know what happens when you have too much. My father used to call the hump of the hormesis curve. He didn't know what a hormesis curve was, but he used to say that there is a point of diminishing returns. And that's why he would practice no longer than 2 hours in basketball ever, his entire career, never more than 2 hours. Because he said that if you went 3 hours, it would have a negative net effect. Once again, the more is less and less is more. Paradox. I love paradoxes. And so you don't know where that hump is with every athlete. There's no you can't measure it. And even with an individual athlete, that hump may be in a different place every day based on amount of sleep and things like that. So we want to always err on the front side of that hump. The coaches I had throughout high school and college, it was so easy for them. They always wanted to end up on the right side. And it's so easy because you just keep work. You just work. And then when you couldn't get anything else out of your team, you ran them some more and sent them home. And and so we were constantly fatigued, constantly steak burned. And, the best athletes were still the best athletes, no matter what they trained with, because, dumb is undefeated against dumber. That if you destroy everybody on your team, the people with the most athleticism will still be better than the others. So you're still going to win some games. Everybody was doing the same thing. But this is the minimum effective dose idea. that mustard did not make that hot dog any better. If you think about that. And that's what we do to athletes. It's exactly what we do. And that steak will never recover, ever. Once that steak is burned, it's gone. And you think about if you cook a steak, rare, then you can always put it back on the grill, and that's why I see athletes, that we want to cook our steak rare and err on the side of less. We want to get to the line 80% in shape and 100% healthy rather than the other way around. Harry Mara was a fantastic, legendary track coach. He coached this guy, Ashton Eaton, one of the greatest decathletes of all times. And this statement is just fantastic, that we are going to intentionally be out of shape in order to be 100% healthy. I mean, I like this so much. It's one of my 10 pillars of Feed the Cats. Just an amazing statement. This athlete will be better than other athletes that are the other way around. My partner, Les Spellman, said, if you make a profit every day, you will never go broke. So if we go to the front of that curve every single day, and we're never injured, we're always healthy, we are making a profit, and we will never go broke. I'm proud of this slide. This is something I've come up with. And I believe that winning is more important than hard work. This is a hell of a statement. Think about that. And you say, well, of course it is. No, wait a minute. I've talked to football coaches who were 100% bought into sprint-based football, also known as Feed the Cats football. We had 7 state champions last year in the United States, 7 state champions that fed the cats in football. No conditioning, short practices, nothing on weekends. Fantastic stuff. And but some people, when they hear my ideas and fall in love with my ideas, they say, but if we lose a game or two, I might get fired because people say it's because you didn't condition enough, or your practices were too short, or you didn't work them. You didn't work them like we worked back in the 70s. And I said, well, what's more important, winning or hard work? And they said, well, what's more important? Most important is my job. I want to keep my job. I go, well, then go ahead and work hard. Go ahead. But personally, I'm all for winning and making the experience fantastic for kids. And then I believe that performance is more important than fatigue. Of course it is, right? Then why is hard work and fatigue like the posters on our locker room walls? I mean, that's what it is. Rise and grind, worshiping the grind, worshiping pain and suffering and hard work and fatigue, all that stuff. And, if you're performing, you don't want fatigue. You don't want it. So it's just a new way to think. Tired is the enemy. This is my second favorite Ashton Eaton slide. These are decathletes at the Olympic level, the most elite athletes in the world. Arguably, if you can do the 10 events of the decathlon, you're spectacular. The problem with the decathlon is that the 10th event is an endurance event. And that's why these guys have like their eyes rolled up in their head. They look like they're not very tough. They are dying because they just ran 1,500 meters, close to a mile. And they don't train well for it. Well, like you're probably thinking, well, what? They should train, shouldn't they? Shouldn't they train harder for the mile? They need to go out and run some endurance stuff. This is embarrassing. And believe it or not, there are some coaches who have suggested that. But there's a reason why we undertrain endurance in the decathlon. If these guys train like marathon runners or cross-country runners, or you could even say milers, they would not have an athletic look. They would look more like an endurance runner. I hate to say that, but endurance runners are very thin and not very muscular. And the problem with endurance work with the decathletes is that the other 9 events are speed and power events. If you ran 5 miles on Monday, you're probably not going to throw the shot and discus as far on Tuesday. As you train endurance, you're hardwiring endurance mechanics, not sprint mechanics. So you might not be as good in the 100 and the 110 hurdles and those speed events. And everybody knows that the more you run, the less you jump. I mean, like the best jumpers in the world are not cross country athletes. Check them sometime. Yeah, sprinters have vertical jumps in the 30s, and cross country guys have vertical jumps in the 20s because they've detrained that twitchy elastic stuff. And so these guys choose to be undertrained and hurt like hell in the 10th event. They're still pretty good because guess what? They are freaking athletes. They are athletes and they can still do it, but it hurts like hell. They choose to hurt like hell so they can throw the shot further, high jump higher, long jump further, sprint faster. So sprinting is obviously really important. And how do you train a sprinter? How do you train a cat? You need to sprint as fast as possible. What does that mean? That does not mean that you do 10 sprints with, like 30 seconds rest, because that's not fast as possible. You need to sprint with freshness, total recovery, and you need to be spiked up on a track and being timed. If you're not spiked up and being timed, you're not sprinting. Now, having said that, you say, oh, well, we don't have a track. Well, okay, we always do the next best thing. If all you have is a football field, then sprint on grass or sprint on turf or whatever. But we want to sprint as fast as possible. I think it's really important to time. Now, we also need to do this as often as possible. I would say that's 2 or 3 times a week. And, people say, well, what if we have like spring break and we're not? Then take that week off. I said as often as possible. I'm not saying you have to do it 2 or 3 times a week. We want to be as consistent as possible, do it as often as possible. But obviously it does not mean we're going to sprint 2 or 3 times a week every single week of the year. And then we need to stay as fresh as possible because we can't sprint without being fresh. Period. Tires the enemy. Speed is not just another bucket to be filled. A very influential trainer of professional athletes told me one time that speed is just another bucket. And I about, died. Like, what? It's just another bucket? No, speed is the tide that lifts all boats. And he said, well, especially, you're working with high school kids. Because I'm working with professional athletes or, guys that want to be professional athletes, their speed bucket's almost full. They're already fast. So we need to work on the other things. I said, not work on speed? To me, that is kind of a curse of modern life where we just have a hard time prioritizing. We don't understand what the most important thing is. We want to go in every direction equally. And to me, a lot of smart people are saying stuff like this, but to me, that's not very smart. That really smart people figure out what the priorities are, and they read the book Essentialism, and to get far in the most important things is a pretty important thing. So let me explain. Speed improves agility. People will push back on that like crazy. I say, well, who would you rather have changing directions? A fast athlete or a slow one? No brainer. So what happens if we could make that athlete 1 mile an hour faster? His agility improves. Acceleration. Every weight room guy wants to talk about acceleration because they do all their speed work in a small room and they can't sprint. I understand that. You're doing the next best thing. Good for you. Keep pushing and pulling things. That's all you can do. You're in a weight room. You don't have a track. You can't get outside because it's cold, whatever. But I'm just here to tell you that fast people accelerate really well. Slow people do not. If you can improve an athlete's speed by 1 mile an hour, his acceleration will come with it. Skills. You say, well, what in the hell does speed have to do with skills? Well, I think that better athletes have better skills. Pretty simple. So, what's a good athlete? Well, they're fast and explosive, and they're strong, and yeah, so fast. I mean, I don't care if you're swinging a bat or throwing a football. As you get faster, you will get better at skills. I believe that every weight room coach I've ever spoken to that has prioritized speed, and speed trains before the weight room, not after. They truly speed train where they're totally recovered. The volume is very low. They say it's the greatest warm-up in the world, the greatest potentiator of the weight room. That whatever you do next after a speed workout will be better because you did that speed workout. And then capacity. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. That everybody does endurance work to gain capacity, and it's just sloppy, crappy work. And so what I believe is that if we can get a guy to run 22 miles an hour instead of 20, which can happen. I actually had a freshman a few years ago that ran 17 miles an hour, and as a senior ran 23. 17 to 23 in 3 years. And he made the final cut, or he got cut in the final cut of the Chargers camp last August. But, he played in all the exhibition games and all that kind of stuff. And a guy named Tyler Hoosman. And I'm just here to say that if we can improve our speed by a couple miles per hour, that game speeds will become more manageable. Some people argue that you don't need speed because game speeds, let's say in football, are 14 to 17 miles an hour, even if you're a wide receiver. Okay, well, who is able to run 50 routes at 17 miles an hour best? Somebody that runs 22 miles an hour or somebody that runs 18? We know that. That in a way, as we get faster, we get in better shape because we are able to deal with game speeds with more efficiency. It just doesn't take as much gas for us, if you're really fast, to run 17 miles an hour. You can do that all day. You can do it 100 times. But if you can only run 17 miles an hour, you can't do that 100 times. I time everything with free lap, weatherproof. We never miss a time. I think it's blowing at 30 miles an hour today as I speak. Those cones never blow over because they're only like 6 inches tall. If you're using things that are up on tripods, they're going to blow over. Things are going to break. Free lap is light, wireless. I can't imagine coaching without it. I've been a spokesperson for free lap for probably 12 years. I really think we need to incentivize speed, and I did this. I invested a little over $400 5 years ago, and I have a lifetime supply of these things. For a little over $400, I bought 1,200 of these, 300 of each, and it's from a company called Rapid Wristbands, and my guys wear them. If you run 23 miles an hour for us, I think we only have 3 of them this year on our track team, but 23 is they're elite, and those guys will wear all 4 of these, and when I look, they always have them on, always. So I think miles per hour is an important metric, because if somebody runs 20.2 miles an hour, 21 really feels gettable. I mean, they're going to hit 21 pretty soon, they think. But going from 20 to 21 it just makes a guy a totally different human. They're a different athlete. So I think we want to incentivize speed. By the way, to get miles per hour out of a fly, you take 22.37 divided by the 10-meter fly time. You say, oh man, but we use yards. Yeah, I know, we do too. There's boys' hurdles are 10 yards apart in track, even though it's a metric race. So we don't have to measure anything to go yards. So we do yards all the time. And of course, on football fields, you have yards. So if you're doing a 10-yard fly, the number is 20.45 divided by the 10-yard fly time, 20.45. By the way, if you're doing like 20 meter or 20 yards, you just double the number. If you're doing 30 meters or 30 yards, you triple the number. This is something I think that is revolutionary, and there's nothing revolutionary about the physics equation for momentum, P equals mv, but using this in sports, especially in football, is just a game changer. So these dog tags were made, and I forget the name of the company, but if you want to know, you can email me. I have my email address at the end of this and everything. But they give bands. Garrett Mueller at Stewartville High School, 14-0, of course, Feed the Cats, Minnesota State champ. He gives wristbands for miles per hour because speed is good. You want guys to be fast. But what he found was that fast guys that were fast, big guys that were fast are amazing football players. Every single one, no false positives. If you are 200 pounds and fast, you are a stud football player. Now, maybe not a wide receiver, but as we know, over half the positions in football are not greyhounds. They're not racehorses. But they're not workhorses either. They are big guys that can move, and hopefully that the fastest offensive tackles from the NFL Combine get drafted in the first round, and the slowest ones don't get drafted. I don't care how good they are. So what you do is this: you simply weigh your kids, easy. You could weigh them once every 2 weeks, change it, whatever, and then come up with miles per hour. Come up with miles per hour just like we did here. That's the only two things you need, because I've created a spreadsheet, and it's free to anybody who sends me an email. I'll send you the spreadsheet. You don't have to have access to it or anything. You just make copy. You just say make copy, and then you have a copy of it. And all you have to do is add, put the players' names in one column, put their weights in another, and then put their miles per hour in the next column. Actually, not even miles per hour. All you have to do is put their 10-yard fly time. That's it. Two things. Put in their weight, put in their 10-yard fly time. And it will automatically calculate miles per hour, automatically calculate truck stick. Oh, it'll change the weight from pounds to kilos. It will change the 10-yard fly time to miles per hour, and miles per hour to meters per second. And then finally, you'll have the truck stick number, which is momentum. And if you want to know the physics unit, the physics unit of momentum is Newton seconds, but you don't need to know that. And what we found is that if you're 600 at a average size high school, you are a solid football player. If you're 700, you're much better than the 600s. And if you're 800, you're going to be all conference and one of the best players. Now, if you're a big school, like if you're a big school in Oklahoma or Texas, I know they have some big schools that are pretty jacked up football-wise. Maybe you need a 900 dog tag. But, that's a good problem to have. I think it's important to understand that even though like 800 is like, that's pretty good. If you're elite, your truck stick may be over 1,300. These numbers are not scientific on the left, but, through lots of study, I have found that it takes 24-mile-an-hour sprinters to run a 4.35 the NFL Combine. If you can only run, like 18 miles an hour, I don't care how good your acceleration is, you will never break 5 in the Combine. Ever, ever, ever. That top speed is the number one KPI, not acceleration. Top speed is the number one KPI of success in the 40. So if you want to be good at the 40, yeah, you can work on acceleration, but you better be fast. And remember what I said about fast guys. Fast guys are always good at acceleration. Always, always, always. There are no 24-mile-an-hour guys that, oh yeah, he couldn't break 5 because he's no good at accelerating. Are you kidding me? The brain handles all movement, not just, like top speed. The brain handles all movement. So anyway, with Wirfs running a 4.85 40, I estimate his miles per hour at 20.4. He weighed 322 pounds. He probably weighs more now, but his truck stick is 1330. And of course, he was, I still don't know how he dropped to like the 20th pick in the first round, because he was by far the best offensive tackle coming out. I would have picked him number 1, and I would have been right. So this is the truck stick calculator. You put names on the left, you put their weight in pounds, you put their 10-yard fly in seconds, and then my formula converts to miles per hour. Another one will convert weight to kilograms. Another one will convert miles per hour to meters per second, and then it'll come up with a truck stick in newtons seconds. So it's kind of interesting. I have Wirfs down here. Derrick Henry. Once again, I had to estimate his mile per hour based on how fast he ran the 40. But at 247 pounds and running 23 miles an hour, his truck stick would be 1151, which I think if I did that for every running back in the NFL, Derrick Henry would have the biggest truck stick. So I hope you understand why this is important. You can visually think, a big, fast athlete is a prized football player, period. So you want to microdose speed and X factor work. Speed, I color code our workouts as yellow, green, red. Red means yikes, burn the steak that day. We always take the next day green. But my yellow days are speed days and X factor days, which yellow means caution. Yellow means caution. Green means renewal. So on speed days, we do 10 speed drills and 3 time sprints. That's all we do. We did one yesterday. We did 10 speed drills, and then we did 2 15 into a 10 out of the blocks. That's more of an acceleration metric. We never limit the run in unless we are doing a 15 into a 10 out of the blocks. And then we did a 40-yard dash yesterday without blocks. So that's what we did. I mean, with 40 guys, it takes about 45, 50 minutes. Now, I've come up with this thing called the atomic speed workout, which is just like this, except for there's only 2 time sprints. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. Hey, this is Lavelle Patterson. Today we are going to do the 15-minute atomic speed workout. In this workout, we're going to do 10 speed drills that will take us about 10 minutes, and then we're going to do 2 sprints. In all, it's only going to take us 15 minutes, and Lavelle is only going to do 60 seconds of work. But the work that he's going to do is very high quality, high intensity, and super fast. This is the shortest, smallest workout that I've come up with that will actually have a positive impact on speed. This workout was actually created, for the hook. The idea that, hey, do you have 15 minutes? Buy free lap, 15-minute workout, 60 seconds of work. Do it 2 or 3 times a week. And it's been so popular that there are hundreds of football teams that are now doing this twice a week instead of their stupid warm-up that takes 40 minutes and gets their players pre-fatigued. Now, everybody does these speed drills, but they don't do them very well. They do them as a warm-up. We don't do it as a warm-up. We do it as a speed drill. We don't take a lap before this. We get going. No one's ever gotten injured doing a speed drill. In 25 years, no one's ever been injured doing this. So the 10th thing we do is get up to top speed. with an acceleration. So yeah, we work on acceleration. And now we're doing a 10-yard fly. Basically, it's about a 30-yard run in, 35, but I don't ever limit it. Very important, 5-minute recovery. Now, if you want to see this again and you don't want to go through this whole video, it's on YouTube. But the actual filmed work that Lavelle did, the iMovie lasted 69.4 seconds. Now, that doesn't show the rest intervals and things like that, but 10 speed drills in 10 minutes, 2-time sprints, an actual speed day is 3. It just, I just wanted something, we're always looking, how low can we go in terms of dosage? Now, X Factor workouts are things that we do when we want to work out, but we can't sprint every day. We want to sprint 2 or 3 times a week total. So with X Factor work, we work on bouncing. We work on snap, which is elastic type things. Snappy is one of my favorite words. 2 of my favorite words, bounce and snap. Power. We work on big split. That means big split of the thighs. And we work on hardwiring sprint habits. This is one of my favorite X Factor drills. We are just jumping into a lunge position, so we call them air lunges. And I think that we're working obviously on the big split of the thighs. We're working at a snappy motion. We're working at bouncing off the ground. And I didn't include it, but I think it's a power drill too. If you think that's easy, try it. Have somebody video you. That's not easy. Now, my freshmen don't do it that well, but we assemble the plane in flight. My freshmen are much better at it as sophomores. And as juniors, they look like this. We do med ball throws. We like to throw high and finish with the hips. We also love rotational stuff where we call them wall busters. And we try to bust down the wall. We love the Adam Archuleta, Jay Schroeder, Dan Fichter collision training. I call these cat jumps. Obviously, they're altitude jumps or altitude drops. This is where we are learning to absorb force. We are learning to remove the governor from our brain and have our brain understand that we can safely collide with the ground. This is, I call it collision training. Adam Archuleta was doing this back in the late 90s. And eventually went from a guy that was slow from a guy that ran 4.37 and vertical jump 39 inches and 10-11 in the long and you also 31 reps at 225. So he was like a monster of training, and a lot of the stuff was stuff like this: collision training, CNS training. This is more collision, CNS stuff. We're going to depth jump. We're going to walk off and then spring into a long jump. Obviously, we do this and spring into a high jump. Sometimes we spring over 2 consecutive hurdles. More Adam Archuleta type stuff. This is an extreme iso lunge. Extreme position, train the extreme, you train the range. You see the co-contractions there? That's twitchy as hell. And he's not trying to twitch. That's the CNS going crazy with co-contractions. This is amazing sprint work. It makes you faster, makes you stronger in an extreme position. I can't, we do this about 45 seconds or so. Archuleta used to do it for 5 minutes, and that's just hell. I won't put my kids through hell, but we're going to get some benefit out of this. I love the fact that ISOs create no next day soreness, which is a huge part of Feed the Cats training. We do some weird things. I started doing this, I think 2002. Now, you've seen people do warm-up. See, we ain't warming up here. Faster, faster, higher, higher in the front, higher in the back, faster, faster. Grab a little ground on the way through, grab a little ground. So, and people ask, like, how long do you do these things? My guys are so trained that they never wonder. They just do it till they get a little bit tired and then they quit. That's pretty weird, isn't it? That, oh, I thought we were supposed to get tired and I get more tired. Nope. No, we're performance based. So we do it until we get a little bit tired, then we recover, then we do it again or move to something else. This is called X factor work. We do timed mini hurdles. This is the only thing we do in X factor work that resembles running. And obviously, this is, yeah, we're sprinting here. We do a run in. Wickets are 6 feet apart. We typically do 8 of them. Here we're timing them. If you want to change things, watch closely, time, video, and or compete. You know, those are things that change practice level stuff, moderate exercise, into performance level exercise. Sometimes I fake video. I could fake video and fake time probably, and guys would go like crazy. I just want you to know that that is not the way you see people going over wickets typically. They this is performance level training. We measure stuff. You know, that's how you change people. This guy, if you can triple broad, if your athletes in high school can triple broad jump 30 feet, they're a possible Division I athlete. 30 feet, triple broad jump. This guy goes 31.6. He's going to West Point. He's a team captain for me. Potential all-stater in the hurdles, in the triple jump. He is actually a sub 2 minute 800 guy. Good athletes are good at a lot of things. You say, well, do you ever push and pull things? We have like one sled in our whole school, and it's a pain in the ass to get it out, so we don't use sleds. You say, what? Don't use sleds? You know, we use bands or we use partner pushes. Here we're just using bands. The kid on the right has the wrong arm up. I cut him. We cut and track. We don't let anybody come out. This passes the eye test for me. These bands are $31 a piece, and we have 2 of them tied together. So I guess each combination is about $62, and all you need is 4 of them. You know, like you see, this is the way we do X Factor. We have a group down at the far side. We have a group doing this. We have a group at the other side. So basically, we'll divide up into 3 stations because we have 3 coaches, and we do uniquely different things for about 10 minutes at each station. And we go home without being tired. A lot of people want to know about my ideas on sprint mechanics. And I think they're good because I'm such a simple guy. You run like Carl. You know, get tall. You know, don't be leaning forward or leaning back. You want your hands to cross the hips. You see that hand is about 12 inches. The right hand's about 12 inches past the right glute, and it's pretty low. It's important that you understand that we, yes, our arms are 90 degrees in front of our body. See how Carl's arm is like 90 degrees, but it lengthens on the all-important downstroke. The downstroke's the most important part of arms. Coincides with a powerful planting of the foot or striking the ground. And I call it big in the front. We want to get big in the front. This is only sprinters get big in the front. Distance runners don't know how. They never do it. They just, you know, they run with T-Rex arms and they just shuffle their feet. That's how distance runners run. That's why we don't run miles. That's why we don't do endurance work. So big in the front means high knee, foot off the ground, and in front of the body. It's not lagging behind under the hips. So the foot is under that knee, and this allows us at max speed to put down huge amounts of vertical force. Obviously, with acceleration, we're putting down horizontal force, and very long ground contacts with acceleration. But in max speed, our ground contact time is about 1/12 of a second for somebody like Carl. 1/12 of a second we're on the ground. Now, showing that 90 degrees in front, you know, distance runners look like look like number 5 the entire time. That's how distance runners run. I'm about to go out and run a couple miles, and that's the way I will run a couple miles. But when you sprint, you must have full range of motion in the shoulders. If you look at number 3, that arm is almost totally lengthened. It is sure as heck not. It's probably 175 degrees or something. Surely not 90. And then the position number 4 is the position we saw Carl in, and I know Carl pretty well, and he talks about elbow to the sky, and I like that, but I don't say it. Just because you do it doesn't mean you cue it. It's kind of poetic. Just because you do it doesn't mean you cue it. So, but the great thing about that elbow to the sky is you get a full stretch of the shoulder. That's number 4. You see those 2 red lines? That stretch creates a stretch reflex where free energy allows the arm to snap, not be pulled, but to snap back in front of the body. So, that's one of the things that efficient sprinters do. They have full range of motion, and that shoulder stretch is really important. And remember, if all you do is distance running, your kids will never learn to do this. So that stretch reflex is really important, and there's also a stretch reflex in the hip flexors, that when we have an extreme split of the thighs, a split of the femurs, it stretches those muscles and tendons, and so the leg will not have to be slowly pulled up into a knee-high position, into a big in the front position. That stretch reflex will snap that leg up. That elasticity that great sprinters have is something that I'm afraid to say sometimes the weight room takes from kids. That you get really good at long, slow contractions, and you have no elasticity, no snap, no bounce, and those things are all really, really important. And we haven't even talked about the spine. I won't talk about that today, but we do not have an immobile spine when we sprint. The spinal engine is very important. And once again, so many things in the weight room where our spine is locked, and that's why we've got to sprint. The weight room's fine, but you got to sprint. So everything we do, even like a skip type drill, we're tall, big in the front, maybe even exaggerated big in the front. Our hand is passing our hips. You see that elbow is to the sky. So everything we do, we're doing this, we're coaching like this, we're cueing like this. When people say, speed drills don't make you any better, I'm like, I think they do. And secondly, when do you coach? Like, you can't coach when a guy's sprinting. Do you coach when everybody's just standing around, like not paying attention to you? No, I coach when we do speed drills. This is Marcellus Moore, who ran for me. He's at the University of Texas now, 60-meter record holder for UT. And you see that big in the front angle, the extreme split of the thighs. It's like over 100 degrees. If you bisect that angle, it ends up out in front of the body, like way out, like the big in front knee. You see the elbow to the sky here. You see the hand cross the hips, the 90-degree angle in the front. You don't have to coach that, but that's what you'll see. But he's going to have a great stretch reflex in both the right shoulder and the left hip flexor because he got in this position. We work on this by going over wickets here. Our wickets are still 6 feet, but they're laid down so nobody knocks them over. But you see this big in front stuff. He's tall, hands past the hips, extended arm, elbow to the sky, left elbow is at 90 degrees. But that big in front, and we also try to be short in the back. we don't want to be long in the back ever. So this is why we do wickets. And if guys are untrained, they might be, like one of the best lacrosse players in the nation and still run like this. And that's why lacrosse athletes need to sprint. That's why soccer athletes need to sprint, and why distance athletes need to sprint. You see how he is not stiff. He's collapsed at the hip and the knee. I'm sure his ankle has no dorsiflexion. You see he's long in the back. You know, that knee, when you are up and down like this, that knee is supposed to be out in front of the body. And I'll show you what that looks like. But before I do that, I want to show you what collapse. There's very little collapse in a good sprinter. Less than 2 centimeters. I bet this is 10 to 20 centimeters. Less than 2 centimeters of collapse. So you think, oh, they got to get strong in the weight room. Yeah, that's part of it. And then they also need to learn how to absorb force with what we call cat jumps and all the collision training that we do. Here's Marcellus. He sure doesn't look like this guy. Look at the stiffness that he has created. That post leg, the right leg, is straight up and down. But see how the knee is like 10 inches in front of the other knee? That's a fast leg. That's really fast. Also, another characteristic of good sprinters is that they're in a position here where Marcellus's calf is locked up, not locked up, but is touching the hamstring. That leg is folded, and the knee is so fast coming through that it makes kind of like a 4. Can you see a 4 in the legs? We call this the 4 position. You also see an incredibly strong downstroke of the left arm that seems to really match with the right leg. And by having a really strong downstroke of the left arm creates a really strong contact with the ground on the right side, and putting all that force in the ground causes him to almost bounce off the ground. And that's why his contact times were 1/12 of a second. And that's how you become the fastest guy in the state of Illinois, historically, and all that kind of stuff. Stop doing shit that makes you slow, man. If you take one thing from what we're, you're going to have fast kids come out for your team. You're going to recruit fast kids as a college coach, but man, don't run the cat out of them. Why would you do that? So I don't do any tempo at all. I know that's weird. I know you guys, probably took an entire course in your S&C training on the glorification of tempo running. And it's probably because Charlie Francis wondered himself, what do we do on days when we don't sprint? We sprint 2 or 3 times a week. So what do we do on the other 2 days? Oh, we'll do tempo running. We will sprint at 70% or 80%. I hate freaking percentages. Anyway, we don't do any tempo. And I have not proved that tempo is bad, even though I think it is. But I have proven you can be really fast and really athletic and skip the tempo work and do something better for you instead. So this type of running, if you look at the silhouettes, you should kind of throw up your mouth a little bit. This stuff sucks. When I look at these guys, there's no bounce. That's one of the key things. There's no snap. One of the key things. There's no big split of the thighs. Look, they're all short. They're all small in the front and long in the back. And there's no power. There's no power out there. I mean, these guys are weak. But you know what there is? Lots of hardwiring. Lots of habit forming. That's why we don't run a mile warm up. We don't even warm up. We go right to speed drills. We don't do a cool down. I know this, all of you that got all your athletic training from Runner's World magazine back in 20 years ago, so much of athletic training came from the distance craze created by Nike in the early 70s. The last 50 years have been the only 50 years of human existence where people routinely would go out and jog. And it's really, you add that with the bodybuilding craze of the steroid era, Schwarzenegger and all that kind of stuff, you get this strange convergence of stupid weight room and stupid running. And, I'm here to say there's a different way. I love the look of these athletes. They're all shirtless. They look lean and strong. They all, bench press 250, and they look like a great track team. But why would you do this to them? They're all long in the back, small in the front. Their arms are all T-Rex. Not one guy is crossing their hips when they sprint. Now, some people say, some coaches are like, yeah, this is a picture of us sprinting at the end of practice. No, it's not. This is run the cat out of athletes. So, I also notice a lot of them have their eyes closed. They're detached. They're thinking their brain, this sucks. Now, when the coach calls them over at the end of practice, hey, do you love it? Oh, we love it, coach. Can we run some more? Because that's the Stockholm syndrome, where the abused, fall in love with their abuser. And, these guys have all been taught to tell coaches what they want to hear. So even though they're going to have a great attitude, they're going to fall in love with hard work, they're going to grind, all that kind of stuff, they are being detrained as athletes by doing this. So stop it. It's important to state that Marcellus Moore is winning this race by over 10 meters against 6 other very good athletes that have all trained 3 times harder than him. They've all done workouts like 10 200s. They've all done a mile warm-up, mile cool-down, stretching, 2-hour track practices, all that kind of stuff. And he's kicking their ass. And he's never done more than a half lap in practice, ever, 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 ever. And the most 200s he's ever done in a practice is 3. And he only did that 3 times the entire 19-week season. So, why is he ahead of everybody? It's because he can run 24 miles an hour and the other guys can only run 22. Because speed creates endurance. Speed, fast guys will have the appearance of being in great shape. The great Christian McCaffrey story, they do no endurance work at all during the summer. All speed and X Factor. Brian Kula trained him for 15 years. And I said, Brian, has Christian ever had to go to one of those stupid conditioning tests? He said, yeah, with the Panthers, they did 16 times 110. I said, was there hell to pay because he was out of shape? He goes, no, he won it. Of course he did. Make your guys good athletes. Good athletes are in great shape. Measure what matters. Every time we do a 10-yard fly, 10-meter fly, 20-yard fly, 35-meter fly on the curve outdoors. I love curved running. 40-yard fly, that's a long, long fly. It's like a 100-yard run, basically, because you're at top speed for 40. We do accelerations by putting a cone on the first and second hurdle mark, which makes it a 15-yard block start into a 10-yard fly. I love those. I don't like to rush acceleration. I think anybody that does 10s and 20s, like time the first 10, I just don't think they know what they're doing, because kids are going to rush the acceleration. They're not going to have proper fundamentals. I realize that if you're in a tiny weight room, maybe that's all you can do is a 10-yard sprint or a 5 into a 10. And I accept next best thing is okay, but realize it's not the best thing. Then we also do full sprints, from start to finish, a 40-yard dash. I love the correlation with football. And we do a 55-meter dash because that's the furthest we can run on our tiny indoor track. Our indoor track is 9 laps to a mile. A lot of people want to know, obviously it's a weight room crowd, and I am not anti-weight room, and S&C people I really respect. I think you have a really hard job, a job I would never want to do, because I would never want to be at the whim of a head coach. I want to make decisions. I don't want to be told what to do. So I really respect the job you do and what you do for athletes. What I would recommend is never let the weight room interfere with speed. And by that, I mean, you would never do something in the weight room during the day that would mess with somebody's speed workout after school. You would never do something super hard on Monday that interfered with Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday speed work. If you don't know if it interferes with speed, that's because you're not timing. I have timed for 25 years, 2 or 3 times a week, hundreds of thousands of 40s and flies and things like that. I understand what the weight room can do to speed. And you need to stop doing bad things to speed. Simple. And then never let the weight room interfere with the sport in season. There are coaches all over America that tell me that their track athletes have mandatory training at 6 in the morning with their football coach, and they will come to an important regional or sectional or conference track meet, and their best athletes are diminished because of some stupid workout they did at 6 in the morning. And that should never, ever, ever happen. That coach should be fired if that, I mean, it is crazy that we allow an in-season athlete to be diminished by somebody in the weight room. I say to be general in the weight room. People don't understand that. By general, I mean there's nothing specifically in the weight room that will improve speed, maybe even athleticism. I won't go there. Let's just say speed. There's nothing I can watch in the weight room and say, that kid's going to make my 4x1. Nothing. And you say, well, what is there? Well, if a kid does like a 360 dunk and eyeballs the rim, that kid's on my 4x1. So there are things athletically that I can see that are KPIs of speed, and there's no specific thing in the weight room that is a KPI of speed. And before you say, oh yes, there's the cleans. Well, I've seen slow people that were really good at cleaning. So it's not specific. Now, did I say not to clean? Did I say not to get strong? No, hell no. Get strong in the weight room. Strong is good. The weight room is good. It all fits in to what we're trying to do, as long as that speed is the priority. You know, like we want to make athletes, not just strong guys. And then I think we need to be extreme in speed training. What does that mean? That means we time, we sprint fast. If we can wear spikes, we wear spikes. If we can run on a track, we run on a track. If it's windy, we run with the wind. But we are extreme. We also do not call repeat sprints. That is conditioning. It is not sprinting, period. Running 3 200s is not speed training. That's lactate training. That's training the glycolytic system. It's not speed training. Speed training is short with full recovery, being timed. And so we want to be extreme. How fast can your Ferrari go? And then we want to be specific in practice. And it's stupid that I even have to say this, but there are so many coaches that are a-specific in practice. They're doing stuff for the first 40 minutes of football practice that don't look like football. And it doesn't win games. And it drives me crazy. Shorten your practices, be super specific, lots of recovery, and you win games. I'll finish here talking about RPR a little bit. A lot of you know what RPR is, reflexive performance reset. My close friend and business partner, Chris Corfist, is an owner, and also another close friend, Cal Dietz, is also an owner of RPR, and RPR is everywhere now. And I think it does amazing stuff for athletes. What stuff does it do for athletes? It puts the brain in a state of performance, it just declutters the brain. Belly breathing is so good for you. And then secondly, it makes you more durable. RPR football teams, I can't say it's all RPR. It may be fewer collisions, shorter practice times, more speed training, but Feed the Cats football teams report like no injuries, or like one kid got injured, broke his hand or something like that. But basically, if 14-0 and everybody plays in the state final and everybody's 100% healthy, part of that has to be RPR. And then the third thing is I think it improves your performance. We have anecdotal stories like crazy where kids have had RPR done on them, and 5 minutes later ran a PR and all that kind of stuff. So this kind of creepy picture, but this is Julian Love. He's starting safety for the Seahawks now. This is when he's a 17-year-old. And Nazareth High School was big on Be Activated, which is the precursor of RPR. That's what it used to be called, Douglas Heel stuff. But basically, what we'll do is we will do 9 speed drills, and then we do 2.5 minutes of RPR. And the first thing we do is 3 belly breaths. We don't move the chest. In through the nose, out through the mouth, and make a sound. 3 belly breaths. And then we torture the sternum. I say torture because if the guys are just going really easy, you're not getting any good out of it. And then we torture the bottom rib. And we do that for about 30 seconds. And then we take 2 more belly breaths. And this is Julian doing a belly breath. I'm just flipping back and forth here. Notice that his chest does not move. The belly looks pregnant, and then it deflates. So we do 2 belly breaths, and then we go to the psoas. Here, Julian is using an activation stick. They're actually pretty good, but we just use our thumb, and we use our other hand to help push our thumb into a soft belly. To get your belly soft, sometimes you have to bend over a little bit, but we go 2 inches over from the belly button, 2 inches down, and then we go up, try to go up and under the belly button. If you can see that it's not like straight in, it's head toward. So, and then we make big circles. The reason why we make big circles is we have to hit that spot. That spot is not the psoas itself, but is a spot that flips it on, that activates the psoas. The psoas, if you don't know, the psoas it should initiate picking the knee up. It goes from the back, spine, to the top of the femur, and lifting that leg in front of you is a pretty important thing for an athlete. So we do that for about 30 seconds, left and right, and then we do a couple belly breaths. And here's the psoas, by the way. Very weird muscle. The way it goes from the spine through the gut and then to the top of the femur. Then the third thing we do, these are all considered zone 1. The diaphragm, psoas, glutes. They're all very interrelated. The glute spots are the back of the skull. We just do this. Once again, he's using an activation stick. We just use our thumbs. So we press really hard at the bottom of the skull. That's the picture on the left. And then the other glute spot is under the, right under the earlobe. And we're pressing really hard towards the nose, the back of that jaw towards the nose. And once again, we press it hard enough to make it hurt. As soon as take our finger off or here the activation stick off, the pain goes away. The pain doesn't stay with you, obviously. And then we take 2 or 3 more belly breaths, and then we're done. A 2.5 minute ritual that we do on all speed days. 2.5 minutes. I think I tell the guys, can you give me 90 seconds of your attention? I now have my captains doing it, which is wonderful. And I just walk around looking for, somebody like to crack a smile or talk, and then I send their ass home. Because, I just believe this is that important, that we have to have the culture of doing this well.